Over on The View, they think it's a bad idea for human beings to procreate. I'm not joking. They don't want that sort of thing encouraged, and they've got really, really good reasons for it. Racism and climate change. Ah, the left. You gotta love them. Also, the Obamas keep airing their dirty laundry on their podcasts and interviews. Why don't these two just either make up or get divorced? But it's really uncomfortable watching this whole thing. We'll get into the dirty little details about that. Also, if you're a state attorney general or local district attorney and George Soros has paid your salary, you hate this country. One of those Soros-backed prosecutors in Minneapolis just proved it once again. There are two sets of laws in this country, and if you're on the left, you don't have to follow any of them. And finally, Pete Buttigieg. Hey, anybody out there want to buy a baby? Well, it's Pete Buttigieg's bargain basement black baby blowout. He'll tell you all the inside tips on how to get a baby for cheap. Gross. That's all coming up right now. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Yeah, that's right. I went there. Hey, I want you to be a member of Town Hall VIP. This show is produced and presented and distributed by Town Hall Media. Town Hall Media, of course, this is the digital arm of Salem Media Group, and we run a bunch of great websites you already know and you already love. Town Hall, Hot Air, Red State, PJ Media, Twitchy, Bearing Arms. If you go to townhallvip.com, you get a membership, a VIP membership. You'll be able to go to all those sites ad-free, plus you get exclusive content just for VIP members. For instance, tomorrow, I'm doing a members-only live stream over on PJ Media with Stephen Cruiser and Stephen Green, the vodka pundit. We'll be talking for hours and drinking cocktails. And you can only access it if you become a VIP member of Town Hall. So go to townhallvip.com, use my name at checkout and get 50% off. Townhallvip.com, 50% off when you use my name. That would be Larry. Thanks. The View is an ABC News program. I want to keep reminding you of that and reminding Disney Corporation that this is news, what you're about to see. They call this news. All right, Senator Raphael Warnock, who I'm told is a man of the cloth, he appeared on The View, ABC News product, and talked about Jesus, sort of. Take a look.
So when I watch this and hear it coming from folks who have a lot to say about their Christian identity, I have to say as a pastor, Whoopi, that I think Jesus is the biggest victim of identity theft in the country.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who this Jesus is they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, the Jesus I know was born in a barrio called Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Raised in a ghetto called Nazareth.
Yep.
He was an immigrant, smuggled into Egypt.
Sorry.
And in his very first sermon, he centered the poor. It's good news to the poor, deliverance to the captives, preaching the year of the Lord's freedom. And so that's something that I try to do and embody in my work as a United States Senator. I think that our country is going through what I call a kind of soul weariness. I know folks say we're in a constitutional crisis. We're definitely in a spiritual crisis.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so Pastor Warnock there, call me Senator, just said that as he goes about his business as a senator, he tries to inject his Christian faith into everything that he does. You heard that, right? I have to tell you that because over on Rachel Maddow's show, Chris Hayes' show, Lawrence O'Donnell, all the other usual suspects, none of them seem to complain about this radical Christian injecting his religious faith into his job. Raphael Warnock, that's his name. Yeah, sorry for forgetting. Pastor Warnock, by the way, also went on to describe himself as a Matthew 25 Christian. Hey, you heard me right. A Matthew 25 Christian. Apparently, Matthew 25, when Christian talks about compassion for the strangers and the marginalized. I was a stranger in a strange land, and you took me in. Matthew 25. He's a Matthew 25 Christian. Now listen, with all due respect to the good pastor, to the reverend, yeah, I'm not a man of the cloth like him. I'm just a sinful, wretched, imperfect lover of Jesus Christ, my Lord. And thank God he saved my soul. I don't know what I'd be without him. So I'm a humble man here suggesting to you, my faithful viewers and listeners, that when somebody presents themselves as a this verse Christian, a Matthew 25 Christian, a John 3:16 Christian, a Paul Romans 1 Christian, I would be skeptical. You see, this is a big ass book right here. I mean, it is huge, very hefty. It's the Ignatius Study Bible, by the way. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of verses in here. Look at that, baby. That's right. No highlighters, no underlines. I've got a different one for that. This one I just like reading and studying. Don't isolate your faith down to one verse. I assure you there are other verses that harmonize with that one verse you're trying to emphasize. So if the entirety of your understanding of Jesus Christ's teaching has to do with Matthew 25, you're missing out on a whole lot more. A whole lot more. That said, the comparison of Jesus Christ as an immigrant who lived in a barrio was within the context of the conversation regarding the MS-13 gang member from El Salvador, who for a little while illegally called Maryland home. That's right, our pal, Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Senator Warnock, speaking on behalf of his party and I guess his church, compared Jesus Christ to a gang member. And I kid you not, that was actually the least offensive thing on this edition of The View. Let's move on, shall we?
Birth rates continue to decline in America. The White House is looking into offering $5,000 cash bonuses, expanded access to IVF, along with other incentives for women to have more babies.
I am dumbfounded. You know, the audience for this show is women of a certain age, upper middle age, let's call them. And they're rather wealthy for the most part, suburban. Look at that face. Look at the mocking of the idea of the government encouraging people to have babies. And this is just weird, isn't it? Listen, I know that she is an abortion enthusiast. I know that she brags proudly about all the multiple abortions she had before she was even in her mid-20s. But this idea of mocking people for wanting to procreate is kind of creepy and gross, isn't it? Just the whole delivery there with the over-animated facial expressions. I mean, either that or she's just trying to work through the Ozempic high that she's suffering from. But again, least offensive thing compared to what you're about to see.
Why? And okay. I am incredibly insulted by this because clearly they don't know how women's bodies work and they don't know what it costs to raise a child or just have a child. And $5,000? I don't know what $5,000 is supposed to do. And it's not even $5,000 because you have to cut it in half because you got to pay taxes on it. Yeah. So they're offering you $2,500 to have a baby. Now, don't forget about all the stuff they've cut.
Yeah. We have
That you need. Yes, you have a list.
Yep.
So I'm supposed to say to you all, and are you ready for this?
Yeah.
What do you think of this proposal?
Wow, they really are pretty evil over there. Whoopi Goldberg is mocking people if they think that it's a good idea to get a $5,000 payout from the government. I wonder if the Biden administration or the imaginary Kamala Harris administration had offered $5,000 if people got a safe, legal, and rare abortion rather than burden our society with another baby being born. I wonder what their reaction would be to that on the pro-woman side of the equation. Also, did you catch how she said, well, so it's only going to be $2,500 because you got to pay taxes on it? Hey, Whoopi, There is a very, 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 very small percentage of the American people who have to pay a 50% tax rate. I know you're one of them. The fact of the matter is, for over a third of the American citizens who actually don't pay any taxes because they're below the taxable income line, they're still wanting to have babies too, and they'll get that full $5,000. And the fact of the matter is, whoop, $5,000 will go a long way. Certainly more than they're getting right now if they have a baby, right? So if they're going to have a baby anyway, what's wrong with $5,000? And listen, I'm not a huge fan of the government paying out money that we don't have, but Lord knows we pay it out for a lot of other stupid things to incentivize behavior, you know, like getting solar panels on your house. So she turned to her friends on the panel and said, what do you think about this? And then we heard what they thought about this. 3 guesses what Sunny Hostin said about this. You have 3 guesses, 1-word answer. How would Sunny Hostin describe this policy? Go ahead, make your guess. Here it comes. I should have only given you 1 guess.
Because when I look at something like this, these proposals, I want to know why, and I want to know who's making them. And so when I looked into that, they're saying that the U.S. birth rate is declining. However, in 2024, there was a 1% increase in U.S. births. But that increase was with Hispanic mothers and Asian mothers. So they don't seem to be concerned about that increase. They seem to be more concerned about a decrease in other populations.
Say it.
No, I think I said enough.
It's not based on that.
And so, well, it's just based on a study. And so the other thing
But have they said that anywhere? I mean, I feel like it would be fair.
It's just
fair to who?
It's just a.
Have they said that this is to target only white families?
Oh, I didn't say that.
You
I
have to read
between the lines. I just gave the stats.
Yeah, but it's about economics. They're wanting people to pay in.
I'm just giving, because when I.
There you go. Elisa Farah apparently is the only honest person on the panel actually saying, oh, so you're saying this is just for white babies. I didn't say that because she thinks you're stupid. And she thinks that the corporate boxes at Disney, ABC News are stupid. But did you notice the evidence that this is really just about white babies? She pointed to Hispanic babies and Asian babies. Well, what about the black birth rate, Sonny? I mean, isn't that relevant to this conversation? Do you have anything there about the black birth rate? Oh, no, probably not, because black babies are constantly being encouraged to be aborted right now by your party, by your ghoulish party. But there's nothing racist about that. Lord knows, Sunny hosted. Apparently, it's racist to offer $5,000 to have babies born in this country because we do, in fact, have a declining birth rate. That's racist. But spending all of our federal money on Planned Parenthood, started by Margaret Sanger, for the sole purpose of killing black babies before they're born, that's pristine and wonderful, and there's nothing racist there. You really do have to be stupid or evil to say some of the things that you hear from this panel. But there you have it. You pick your tribe. As usual, the answer is probably both. They weren't done on this one, actually. This is an abhorrent idea to them, that we actually have a government program that rewards people for having babies at a time when we have a declining birth rate in this country. Sunny Hostin there saying that we shouldn't do this because of racism. And then, of course, you can't mention race without then jumping to the other great cause, the climate.
But I'm one of those people that I feel that the earth is overpopulated. So when it comes to...
Then why do they want us to have more babies?
Well, they want more babies because it affects not only the workforce, but paying into entitlement programs. But what I would say is this is a short... They're missing the greater point. AI is going to be a problem for our entitlement programs way before the birth rate.
What entitlement program?
So like
the social safety net.
If you have less people working in the workforce, you have less people paying into a system that eventually has to pay out. It's going to bankrupt the social services. The problem here is AI is going to defeat that way before our birth rates are. So they're missing something greater. They have to rework our social system.
Well, they need to tax billionaires for one thing.
That would help.
And corporations.
The genius that is the View panel. Well, there you go. My favorite part, I think, that really does need to be broken down is the very first words out of this Einstein's mouth.
One of those people that I feel that the Earth is overpopulated.
I feel that the Earth is overpopulated. Well, that's because you live in Manhattan, dear. Trust me, when I'm walking the streets of New York City, I feel like the Earth is overpopulated as well. You got to get rid of these people. Where do they all come from, for God's sake? Go home. I feel the Earth is overpopulated. They've been telling us that the Earth is overpopulated for like 60, 70 years. They hate human beings. They hate them. As long as they're alive. You know, dear, if the Earth is overpopulated, can I call you sweetheart? Can I be like Randy Weingarten? Ladies, if the Earth is overpopulated, why don't you guys volunteer to fix the problem? We'll start with you 5. That would be fantastic. You're right. The Earth is overpopulated by at least 5 overpaid, over-Botoxed women. Please help us out. Evil show. Evil show. Have I mentioned that that's ABC News? Yes, those ladies are the hard-hitting news colleagues of David Muir and George Stephanopoulos. They all go to the same cafeteria together at the ABC News headquarters. And they're all in the same business of lying to you. Speaking of lying, I was about to grab my book, but the only book I've got is this one, and that's not mine. Speaking of liars in the media, this is my book, Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. And yeah, there's George Stephanopoulos right there. He's got a featured part in this book. Go ahead and buy it on Amazon. It's available in hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. And it's all about the 2024 presidential election and the lies the media told about them. Shameless Liars. Buy it today. So Pete Buttigieg is running for president. Now, that's not a huge prognostication. He ran for president in 2020. He was running as the mayor of the 4th largest city in Indiana with a pretty mediocre track record. What made Pete Buttigieg special was that he checked the box. He was going to be able to let the Democrats say, this is America's first blank president. See, they love that. They love it when they get to say that they've nominated the first blank anything. Now, the blank that Pete Buttigieg fills is that he's a gay man. And he's not just any kind of gay man. He's a gay man that reminds all white, liberal, suburban women of their favorite gay best friend. And so he's harmless. And he's just a good guy. And he's got a military record. And he talks like Kermit the Frog. Although his appearance on a podcast recently, he's gone through a bit of a metamorphosis. First of all, the podcast is called Flagrant, and it's one of those bro podcasts. See, all the bros hanging out and talking, and there's Pete right in the middle there. He's a bro, don't you know? And if you listen to him talk, as you will in just a moment, you're going to hear that he's modified his voice a little bit. It's a little less Kermit the Froggy. It's a little deeper. It's a little more measured. It's a little more bro-like. He's also grown a beard, which makes him a bro. We mentioned yesterday with Elizabeth Warren that Democrats think that the lesson to the 2024 election is to go on podcasts, which is not the lesson. The lesson is to be authentic and not be afraid to have a very real conversation about real things. Well, that happens often on long-form podcasts like Flagrant. So Buttigieg shows up, and then he tells a story about being a dad. And I don't know if you remember, but he and his husband, Chasten Buttigieg. By the way, Chasten, come on, seriously? You had to take his name as your name? What's going on there? Chasten, stand up to the patriarchy, dude. Be your own man. You don't have to be under his thumb, so to speak. Anyway, he and his husband, Chasten Buttigieg, famously adopted 2 babies, and then he had to take paternity leave when disasters were happening in the transportation infrastructure in America. But, you know, he's the Secretary of Transportation, and he's due his paternity leave after all. So he talked about that experience, but spoiler alert, he couldn't talk about adopting his babies without raising the systemic racism in the United States of America. How do those 2 things connect? Oh, take it away, Pete.
Oh,
Go
have
ahead.
you thought about like
Yeah.
when your son gets older, his experience in the world probably different from yours? Like, how would you have those combos with him? Or even, let's say, your daughter, like, learning to deal with her hair. It's going to be a little difficult. Like, how have you thought about these things? Do they concern you?
Yeah, we think about it all the time. And it's not like we have it all figured out. So we were in.
But if anybody knows how important identity is,
of course. So we were in what's called a surprise adoption scenario. So we literally I was at work. I was traveling. We got a phone call. Chaston called me. And the next day, we were in a rural Midwestern hospital holding him in our arms. And they were like 1 day old. Like, it was like that. Like, just from like normal life to like, and by the way, it's twins. Which was amazing.
You didn't know it was twins.
We were just on a list. We said that we were willing to adopt, or we wanted to adopt. We said that we wanted to adopt without regard for race. By the way,
did you notice that he slipped there? He slips a few times in this conversation, and that's part of the problem when you go on these podcasts, because you get sort of relaxed and you say things in ways that, you're not thinking about your talking points. Did you hear that he said he's willing to adopt without regard to race? And then he stopped himself. And then he said he wanted to adopt without regard to race. Also, you noticed there when he said, the question had to do with identity and having to do with the racial disparity, because his children, his adopted children, are of mixed race. They're half Black. And the question was, do you think about this? And he said, oh, I think about it all the time. You think about it all the time? You look at your children and you think about them in terms of what racial category they're in all the time? I'm sorry. I'm going to make a moral judgment here. That's gross. And by the way, I have 4 children, and guess what? My 4 children are mixed race. And I do not think about it all the time. They're my children. I don't think about my children in terms of what racial category they're in. But Pete Buttigieg says that he thinks about it all the time. And I just question whether that's a wise thing for a parent to do and how a parent should look at their children. But, who am I to judge, I guess? Oh, well, actually, it's kind of my job to judge. But let's hear the story now. He's going to lay it out about how he was wanted to adopt babies regardless of race.
Or we wanted to adopt. We said that we wanted to adopt without regard for race. By the way, anybody who says race is not a thing in this country should experience an adoption process where there are literally different lists. If you say that you want a white kid only versus if you say that doesn't matter.
Wow.
Like literally a different list.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
The list for a white kid only is longer. And not only that, there was actually a discount, or you didn't have to pay a deposit on the fee.
Discount.
Yeah, he corrected himself again. Discount? Yeah, we got a bargain on this Black baby. We didn't have to pay more. You had to pay more if you did that. Oh, what I mean is you didn't have to put a deposit down. By the way, he is in a white couple, right? If his husband, Chaston, were Black, I bet the conversation would have been much different. For instance, is there a Black-only list, right? You've got a list of parents who only want a white baby, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then you've got a list of parents who don't care one way or the other. Is there a list for parents who are Black who only want to adopt Black babies? I bet there is. Why don't we talk about that? Why isn't that something? Why he didn't experience it because he nor his partner is Black. What about a list of Asian couples who are adopting and only want to adopt an Asian child, right? You see what I'm saying? But he is suggesting here that as a white couple, they were given the offer of adopting a white-only baby versus a mixed-race baby, or regardless of race, and in some way that suggests systemic racism. But I say to look at that and suggest systemic racism, you have to already be looking at the world through the prism of race. One other thing here, because I welcome this conversation about adoption in America. I think that it's a scandal in this country that we don't make adoption easier, that we don't facilitate adoption, that we don't encourage adoption. I think one of the reasons that we have such a high abortion rate in this country is because abortion has replaced adoption as a viable option. It appears that the only couples that we hear about adopting babies these days are couples like Pete and Chasten, who, believe it or not, scientifically, biologically, cannot procreate. I know you didn't learn that in a public school, but I'm telling you right now, no matter how hard they try, they can't. Now, if you want to talk about the roadblocks that couples have in this country in adopting a baby, that's a very important subject to have. And let me tell you something, there are racial concerns here. For instance, if you are a foster family and you are white, they will be very reluctant to put a black child in your home because the social services infrastructure in this country believe that it is wrong to put a black child with a white family. That's a fact. They are reluctant to let a white couple adopt a black child because they want a black child to be raised by black parents. In fact, it is so difficult in this country, in many respects, to adopt children. Most of the adoptions in this country of a heterosexual couple end up being adoptions overseas with a foreign baby, often from Asia or from Latin America. Why is that, you may wonder? Why is it we see all of these Caucasian families raising Asian babies who were born in Korea or in China? Why is that? How can that be easier? It is. Because in this country, social workers have blocked multiple adoptions because of racial concerns. That is a fact. Pete Buttigieg is very close to actually prying into a scandal in the United States of America, but he's got it all ass backwards. All right, so let's keep watching about his discounted baby he got.
So this is like how it works. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. So we didn't know anything about the racial identity of the kids until they started to look mixed race, which they are. And like contending with like the hair thing is already like a thing. And like lots of advice, especially from like black parents who like see stuff on Instagram or they're like, let me tell you how to do it. Like a lot of advice. And like to begin with, like the idea of being a girl dad and dealing with girl hair was pretty intimidating. Like my hair is like very simple and straightforward. Obviously, I'm a low maintenance kind of guy. And like starting to learn about like all the different products that are involved, him too. Like we have like a whole sequence with, you know, a conditioner and then essential oils, all this stuff. And you're always asking yourself, like, how can I be, you're already constantly asking yourself, how can I be a good dad? And now it's like, how can I be a good dad for kids who have a different racial identity than I do? And how can I help them navigate that? And what are the circumstances where there's nothing I can do to help them navigate that? And I need to connect them up to mentors and people in their lives, because the reality is like, this is not a colorblind society, and like their lives will be affected in some way by their racial, all of ours are, but one thing about being white is you don't have to think about the fact that when you're white, your racial identity is not something that you're reminded of all the time, in a way that they will be.
They will be reminded of their racial identity because of woke, virtue signaling liberals like Pete Buttigieg. Let's pray for these babies, honestly. I watch this as a father and I think to myself, Pete, just love your kids. Just love on your kids and raise them right. And that other stuff will not matter. But sadly, in that family, apparently, it's going to be one of the only things that matters. But we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, after all, this is Pete Buttigieg, and he just can't help himself but looking at this world through a racial viewpoint. And I have a suspicion why. I'll tell you in a minute.
Getting big money out of politics. And in order to do that, we're going to have to reform the entire system. I am not a fan of, let's be clear, I'm not a fan of the current campaign finance system. And the reality is it's not going to get better in all of the ways we need it to get better without a constitutional reform. So there are things we can and should do right away that can deal with black money, dark money.
He's speaking to the Breakfast Club live audience there. That's Charlemagne the God. And he's talking about dark money in politics, but he slips and calls it black money. We got to get black money out of politics. I think he meant dark money. Why does he constantly do this? Why, when Secretary of Transportation, did he spend all his time talking about systemic racism with regard to how bridges and overpasses are being built? Remember that one in New York? Yeah, we got these bridges in New York that were built for racist purposes. Racist bridges, he said. Everything's race, 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 race. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Just a hunch, just my opinion. In 2008, the United States of America elected our first black president. His name was Barack Obama. In California, that's a pretty blue Democrat state, hasn't gone for a Republican nominee for president since 1988. So, Barack Obama was going to do pretty well that year, and he did. He did really well. In 2008, Barack Obama absolutely dominated in California politics. But then down ticket, that same year, there was a thing on the ballot called Proposition 8. Proposition 8 defined in the Constitution of California a definition of marriage as being between one man and one woman. And it also passed easily in the blue, left-wing, liberal state of California. The same year they elected Barack Obama, those same voters affirmed marriage should be between one man and one woman. And as you can well imagine, in California, there was a huge turnout that year for Barack Obama within the African American community. And exit polling suggested that a huge percentage of the African American voters in California voted for Obama and also voted for Proposition 8. Fact of the matter is, same-sex marriage and other LGBTQ plus issues are very unpopular in the Black community. Pete Buttigieg wants to be president. And so anytime he has the opportunity, he has to offset the negatives he brings with him to the Black voters because he's an openly gay man. He has to offset that by constantly dwelling on racial issues. Pete Buttigieg, he wants to be president of the United States, and you are watching quite possibly one of the most craven, obnoxious, shameless attempts to gain favor within the Black community and within the media. I would prefer not to talk about Mr. Buttigieg's children. They're none of my business. I want those children to have a great life. They've already got a lot of challenges ahead of them, as all children do. I would love for us to have a political conversation about Pete Buttigieg that does not revolve around his kids. I plan to do that as his career goes forward. I only wish Secretary Buttigieg planned to do the same. This man is Dylan Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams, fascinating name for somebody. Dylan Adams was arrested for being an idiot and a vandal, an idiotic vandal. You see, anybody who in this day and age decides to vandalize a Tesla has to know that that Tesla has cameras going all around it at all times. Anybody has to know that when you go in and vandalize a Tesla with your very cute puppy dog, you're going to get caught on candid Elon camera, which he did. He was caught approaching the Tesla, and he was caught vandalizing the Tesla. And as you saw in the first picture, he was arrested for it. Mr. Adams also happens to be an employee of Tim Walz, the governor of his state in Minnesota. So naturally, Mr. Adams is going to walk. Mr. Adams will not be going to jail. Mr. Adams is going to go to a, what did they call it? Redirectional center to be redirected from his bad behavior. Here is the DA of.
We did not decline it. So diversion is accountability. The case was submitted to us by the police. We did not decline it. We looked at the case. What we really wanted was for the victims in that case to get restitution and for this person to be held accountable. We are accomplishing both of those by requiring him to go through a diversion program and to pay restitution to all 6 victims. What happened to those victims of those Teslas should not have happened. And just like any other property offense, which is one of the lowest level offenses that we have, we seek to hold people accountable in a way that will be consistent with public safety. And diversion is a proven way of doing that.
There you go. Diversion. That's the word, diversion. That's your prosecutor. Guess who funded her campaign for DA? Oh, I'll give you 3 guesses. You got it right. George Soros. That's what George Soros does, puts people like that into office. So there you go. Property damage. We just want to divert people. It's a low-level offense, after all, property damage. Of course, motive is important, isn't it? Why did he damage those innocent people's property? For political purposes. Politics played a hand in this. And I'm sorry, did I mention already that he works for the governor, Tim Walz? You know, the man who lost the presidential election this time around to Donald Trump. So what if this is politically motivated vandalism? What if that would actually turn it into a terrorist act? Doesn't matter, because your incredible prosecutor in the Twin Cities has decided that it ain't going to happen. Her name is Mary Moriarty, by the way. And yes, she's a Soros-funded prosecutor. And she has quite the track record. You know, she talks about property damage. You know, back during the George Floyd riots, there was a hell of a lot of property damage for innocent people. This is one of them.
How was last night?
Scary. I live in the high rise right back here, and I seen them as they came down Lake Street. But then they turned and started coming over here, and I'm sitting out looking out my window. And they went straight to Office Max, the dollar store, and every store over here that I go to. I have nowhere to go now.
Hey, lady, come on, man. Shut up. It's just low-level property damage. What are you whining about? Mary Moriarty and Tim Walz and George Soros, they don't care about her. It's low-level property damage, ma'am. And all the people who burned Minneapolis and St. Paul to a crisp during the George Floyd riots, they aren't stupid. They read, they watch, they hear, they know that their district attorney just did this to a vandal. In fact, I did that a little too hard. It was more like this. Next time they want to come out for a righteous political cause and burn things down and vandalize, you know, just like the graffiti on that poor woman's building behind her, they're going to do it because they know they won't get in trouble. Yeah, this woman's a real piece of work. You know how bad she is? You know how bad a prosecutor this Ms. Moriarty is? Wasn't that the villain in the Sherlock Holmes stories?
Yep.
Ms. Moriarty is so bad that even Tim Walz had to take her off of a murder case because he knew she would f it up.
Another development to a story that we've been following now for a few weeks. A murder case allegedly plotted by a jealous ex who hired 2 teens to carry out the crime. And on the eve of a possible plea deal, the governor is now stepping in. Our Karen Scullin has the latest tonight from our live center for us. Karen?
Yeah, it's a huge development in the case of a 15-year-old charged with murder. The family had been asking the governor to give the prosecution of the case to the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, and that finally happened late this afternoon.
How old are you? We're happy.
Renewed hope for the family of Zaria McKeever, the 23-year-old who was shot and killed in Brooklyn Park last November. The family had been fighting back against a plea deal offered by Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty that would have given a 15-year-old charged with the murder 2 years or less behind bars. While the family believed it was a horrible injustice, Moriarty believed justice and public safety would be served best with the teens in a program for juveniles, then oversight till 21. But the family, the community, and ultimately the Attorney General strongly disagreed. A.G. Ellison asked the governor for the case, and tonight Governor Walz called the family to tell them it was happening.
He said, "This is Tim Walz," and I'm like, "The governor?" So I just took off running to go upstairs where my mom was and he's telling me first that he's gonna appoint the case to the Attorney General and he wants justice to be served.
Yeah, listen, when Keith Ellison is the tougher guy in the room who will actually bring justice to the table, you know you've got a problem with that district attorney. I'm happy for the McKeever family, and I'm happy that they got closer to justice because it got taken out of this radical woman's hand. I dare say that if the circumstances in this case were different, I doubt Tim Walz would have stepped in. But here's the problem with all of this. Not only does the family of this murder victim have to deal with this anguish to even think of the fact that their family's murderer was about to get a juvenile sentence or some sort of restorative justice thing. Not only is it bad that the rioters and other vandals in Minneapolis, St. Paul know that if they damage things, there's not going to be any problem. They can walk scot-free. There's another aspect of this that is absolutely upending any sense of justice that we Americans feel on a regular basis, or want to feel at least. You see, when the headline says it's okay for you to damage people's property for political purposes, we won't do anything about it. There's no jail time for that. Yeah, it absolutely will encourage this behavior more and more. But then there's the other side of that same coin. You see, this woman's name is Paulette Harlow. She is 75 years old. She was sentenced to 2 years in jail because of her outrageous behavior at an abortion mill in Washington, D.C. Did she vandalize the abortion mill? No. Spray paint? No. Break a window? No. Did she impede anybody from being able to go into the abortion mill? No, although would have been fine in my mind if she did. Did she hurl insults at desperate, frightened women as they were going into that abortion mill? No, she did not. She sat in front of that abortion mill in Washington, D.C., and she prayed. She was guilty of praying in a public space in Washington, D.C., and she was arrested, tried, and sentenced to 2 years in jail. She had to serve more time in jail for praying in the United States of America than that dirtbag who destroyed somebody's car because of his own warped political ideology. But you see, he worked for the governor of Minnesota, the guy who was almost vice president. Poor Paulette Harlow, she didn't work for Tim Walz or any Democrat for that matter. Maybe things would have worked out differently if she did. When my good friends on the left wonder why conservatives are so tied up with our justice system and angry over the way justice is meted out in this country, it's hard for them to understand it. Hopefully, seeing this, they'll get it. I'll tell you one genius who understands it, though, Elon Musk. He's got a brilliant idea. Okay, it's the Babylon Bee, but still, it's brilliant. Just put a big Tesla logo in front of the IRS building in D.C. Nothing will happen to you. It'll be great. The bee never, ever misses. And they never fail to put a smile on our faces, even when it comes to a story that really pisses us off. So Michelle Obama has this podcast. She does it with her sexually ambiguous brother. And it's been out there for a few weeks now, and it's not good. It's not good at all. But it is really revealing. It's revealing about their relationship, about Michelle Obama as an individual, and about her relationship with her husband. It's a little uncomfortable, actually. It's almost like this open therapy that Michelle Obama is going through for all of us to see. Now, you're not watching this podcast. And by the way, you're not alone. They're not getting a whole lot of downloads. They're not getting a whole lot of views. But I want you to see a little bit of it because, like I said, it informs us about who Michelle Obama is and whether she really does have a political future. People tell me that Michelle Obama would be unstoppable if she ran for president. I'm not so sure. Take a look at this segment from the most recent episode. We'll watch it through once and then we'll comment.
My decision to skip the inauguration, what people don't realize, or my decision to make choices at the beginning of this year that suited me were met with such ridicule and criticism. Like, people couldn't believe that I was saying no for any other reason, that they had to assume that my marriage was falling apart.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like, while I'm here really trying to own my life and intentionally practice making the choice that was right for me, and it took everything in my power to not do the thing that was right, or that was perceived as right, but do the thing that was right for me. That was a hard thing for me to do. I had to basically trick myself out of it. And it started with not having anything to wear. I mean, I had to affirmatively, because I'm always prepared for any funeral, anything. I walk around with the right dress. I travel with clothes just in case something pops off. So I was like, if I'm not going to do this thing, I got to tell my team, I don't even want to have a dress ready.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so easy to just say, let me do the right thing. My decision to skip the inauguration.
I don't know if you noticed something. That is 1 minute and 17 seconds long. And we're going to do this together, but I just did a count in my head. I believe she said either me or I or my 23 times in 1 minute 17. I mean, the level of clueless narcissism this woman has in telling this story about why she didn't go to the inauguration, where we were told she had a scheduling conflict. She didn't go to the Carter funeral because she extended her vacation in Hawaii or something like that. Let's not leave the Jimmy Carter funeral out of this too. That she did not want to be the woman on Barack Obama's arm for 2 major international moments. And I kid you not, we're gonna count them together, and then we'll go back and actually deal with the substance of what she said. But stick with me. I know it's painful to have to listen or watch this woman again, but this is so revealing about her and about this couple. The me, I, my quadrant here is incredible. 1 minute, 17 seconds. Now let's go.
My decision to skip the inauguration, what people don't realize, or my decision to make choices at the beginning of this year that suited me were met with such ridicule and criticism. Like, people couldn't believe that I was saying no for any other reason, that they had to assume that my marriage was falling apart. It's like, while I'm here really trying to own my life and intentionally practice making the choice that was right for me, and it took everything in my power to not do the thing that was right, or that was perceived as right, but do the thing that was right for me. That was a hard thing for me to do. I had to basically trick myself out of it. And it started with not having anything to wear. I mean, I had to affirmatively, because I'm always prepared for any funeral, anything. I walk around with the right dress. I travel with clothes just in case something pops off. So I was like, if I'm not going to do this thing, I got to tell my team, I don't even want to have a dress ready. Right? Because it's so easy to just say, let me do the right thing.
All right, 22. I think I got 22. Did you guys get the same count? 22. First time I thought it was 23. I had to use my toes. It's 1 minute and 17 seconds. And she said, I, me, my, or myself. That's a world record. All right, so there's that narcissism. But now let's break down what she's actually saying.
My decision to skip the inauguration, what people don't realize, or my decision to make choices at the beginning of this year that suited me were met with such ridicule and criticism. Like, people couldn't believe that I was saying no for any other reason, that they had to assume that my marriage was falling apart.
Well, first of all, we'll get to her marriage falling apart in a little while, because there is something to be said there. But forgive me for being a tax-paying American citizen who funds her lifestyle right now and her security, and funded a pretty extravagant lifestyle while she was First Lady of the United States. I'm sorry. You know, whenever people decide if they're going to run for president or not, they talk about the discussions they have with their wife or husband or family about how their lives will never be the same again. This will affect your life forever. That's sort of part of the bargain. I'm pretty sure that when she signed up for this and decided to campaign for Barack and explain how this was the first time she'd ever been proud of her country when they nominated her husband as president, you know, being called First Lady and having that big staff and having all the free travel and having all of the prestige and having all of the magazine covers and then leaving the White House and getting all those jobs for millions and millions of dollars. It does, in fact, come with a price. Forgive us, Mrs. Obama, for expecting you to actually do a statesman-like thing and attend a couple of state events now and again in exchange for everything that you got. You think you'd have a podcast right now that anyone gave a crap about if you weren't in the White House? Look at that face. Look at the entitlement, the arrogance, the whiny, negative attitude of someone who has literally been given so much in this country in exchange for so little from her. So, but then she explains why it was such a burden for her to have to drop everything and go to the inauguration of the 47th president.
You know, it's like, while I'm here really trying to own my life and intentionally practice making the choice that was right for me, and it took everything in my power
This Oprah psychobabble is so 1998, maybe 2002, but that's the shelf life. To own my life and to retain my... I'm sorry, Michelle, we didn't all read your book, okay? We're not on board with this. The sooner this genre of podcast can die a miserable death, these entitled, rich, famous, narcissistic people angrily whining about their own insecurities and how horrible their life is. Good God, woman. But it got worse, actually, in this episode. If you haven't heard enough, she's got more.
We don't articulate as Black women our pain because it's almost like nobody ever gave us permission to do that.
And does anyone care?
Yeah, there's
Will
that.
they care?
If we knew, I think we would care. If we knew. If we knew.
Or
yeah, CeeLo Green is right. What's going on with that guy? So think about this for a minute. She is a very famous woman, and she's married to a very famous man. And as far as we know, you remember how she just said, oh, people are suggesting that there's something wrong in my marriage? This woman just said that we Black women, I guess she's including herself when she says we, are really bad at articulating our pain. Her guest there, the actress, says, and who would care anyway? And Michelle Obama says, yeah, there's that. Isn't that kind of an unspoken indictment of her husband? I mean, I don't know. If my wife appeared in a public forum saying it's really hard for me to articulate my pain, and somebody said, and it's not like anyone would care, I would hope my wife would say, well, Larry would care. Larry would definitely care. And then CeeLo Green, her brother, chimes in there and says, well, if we knew we'd care. And Michelle Obama's like, Well, forgive us for jumping to conclusions that maybe there might be some trouble in the Obama marriage, but this is painful to watch. It's so painful. We're going to keep watching.
Never gave us permission to do that.
And does anyone care?
Yeah, there's
Will
that.
they care?
If we knew, I think we would care. If we knew. If we knew.
Or, you know, yeah, and we have to ask ourselves, the men in our lives is, you know, why wait to be asked? You know, it seems like what we go through is pretty obvious. I mean, maybe we're not complaining, but we're actually living life out loud, you know? You know,
Wow. I'm sorry. I can't believe this, but I'm really feeling sorry for Barack right now. Not too sorry. We'll get to him in a minute. But can you imagine your wife doing that? You know, why should I need to say so? Why would I mean, moments ago, she was like, I can't believe people thought there was trouble in my marriage. And now she's airing this for everybody to see? It got worse. This is from a previous episode. But imagine your wife or your husband saying this about you publicly. I recognize that millions of people aren't listening to this podcast. They thought that they'd get millions, but you know, tens of thousands, that's not nothing. Imagine your loving wife, your loving husband saying this about you publicly.
Would you be attracted to a guy who's not financially sound when you meet him?
I married one.
Would you be attracted to a guy who's not financially sound when you meet him?
I married one.
I just so disrespectful, so insulting. And oh, by the way, such a lie. I cannot believe this. You have put me in the position to defend your husband. Damn you, Michelle Obama, that I have to defend Barack Obama. When they met and fell in love and got married, I've seen the movie. Barack Obama had gone to Occidental College for the first couple of years of his liberal arts degree, then went to Columbia University, Ivy League, then got his law degree at Harvard Law, where he was the president of the Harvard Law Review, first Black president of Harvard Law Review. He graduates with his Harvard Law degree. I think the guy's got prospects. Ended up moving to Chicago, getting a job with a firm. Now, listen, I understand her being suspicious of whatever potential he had because he decided to be a community organizer. But to suggest that a guy like that is a loser and doesn't have any sort of financial upside is probably the most deceitful and disrespectful thing a woman can say about her husband. And yet here she is saying it for all the world to hear. And it gets worse. Here's another episode of this unwatchable podcast.
I mean, we've talked about this that often I date younger men. And a lot of it is because...
Let's stop on that, folks.
Oh my God, we had a great dinner. We had a great dinner, by the way, where across the table, your husband goes, but why? And I said, well, maybe because I can.
Yes. Marie. This is what I'm saying. Tales from Tracy's.
It's fun. It's really fun to share.
Tracy tale.
But
I'm sorry.
But one of the reasons, though, that because I had to ask myself that question, I was like, what is this about?
Yeah.
Because I want a partner. And so often, and it's not just that I'm older, I'm also very embodied. I am a full, very whole person who knows myself, who is in charge of my life, and who lives a very full, just robust life. So it's not just age, it's like life experience and sort of a difference. But I had to ask myself the question, why? Why does this keep sort of coming up other than they're hot and gorgeous?
There's that.
But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks. And anything that starts to smell of that for me, I did enough of it where I was controlled and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize, and I have no interest in it, and I will not do it again.
Yeah,
we've talked about this that often I did.
You're a real prize, lady. I've said no doubt that those guys looked upon you as a prize. Did you hear Michelle Obama that entire time? This woman talking about how she dates younger men because older men her age, which is the same age as Michelle Obama and Barack Obama for that matter, those men are full of toxic masculinity. And this entire time that she's doing this, Michelle Obama's like, So here's Michelle Obama publicly on this podcast celebrating the idea of, oh, yeah, go after those younger men because you can. They're hot. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're Barack watching this like, excuse me, darling. Hello. But this clip might reveal exactly what's going on here, simmering under the surface.
Times, and people think I'm being catty by saying this. It's like there were 10 years when I couldn't stand my husband.
You do say that. You say
10 long
10
years. And guess when it happened? When those kids were little, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because you can be all great individually when you're just married. You got your life, he's got his, you come together. It's all, ooh, good to see you. Bye. Take it easy. And then you have kids.
Not take it easy.
Take it easy. You're traveling. That's great. Good. I get to hang out and watch the TV I want to watch.
Right.
But the minute we had kids, it was like, where are you going? And how far? And you start measuring. It's like, how many diapers did you change? And oh, you're golfing? Yeah. Oh, you got time? Oh, you got time to golf? How you at the gym all the time?
Boy, she's a catch, isn't she? Again, I almost feel sorry for Barack Obama. For 10 years, she hated her husband. Going on 15 for me. But I hate to break it to Michelle Obama, but if you publicly say you hate Barack Obama, that makes you a racist. I'm sorry, not my rules. Those are just rules I'm supposed to live by. But what an odious, horrible human being she is. She's got to stop doing these podcasts if she wants her marriage to survive, which maybe she doesn't. Here's Barack Obama responding to the fact that her wife has publicly said that she hated him for a decade. Past tense. He's on the CBS Morning News show with a former football player, by the way. I just want to point this out as a side, because earlier in the week, we showed Michael Stranahan, a former football player who is one of the co-hosts of Good Morning America. And CBS News, of course, not to be done, they get Nate Burleson on there, former football player, to also be a co-host of their network morning shows. My God, there is no creativity out there at all. It is so awful. They are so bad, these shows. These network shows are so derivative of each other. It's just hard to watch. So, of course, you have the former football player conduct the interview because why not? And the question of how you keep a happy wife who hates you for a decade came up in the conversation.
We had your wife, Michelle, on the show, and she had mentioned that for about 10 years of the marriage, she really didn't like you.
Oh, man.
So asking for a friend, how do you get back in good graces? Again, for a friend. You got a pen so I can take some notes?
Let me just say this. It sure helps to be out of the White House.
Now, I need to stop there. Look at that football player. I need to stop there because I would have leaned in here. If this were my interview, because I'm not a former football player, I actually listen to what the person is saying, and I researched the subject beforehand. You just saw the clip of Michelle Obama saying that she hated her husband for a decade. And specifically, when asked about that decade, it had to do with the kids being little, right? Being little. The kids were little. Well, by the time they made it to the White House, the kids were not little anymore. Sasha and Malia, if I remember right, were like, 14 and 12, let's say, 12 and 10. They weren't little. But Barack Obama just said that the secret to getting back in your wife's good graces after she hated you for 10 years is to get out of the White House. Now, they were in the White House for 8 years. And by the time they got out of the White House, one of their kids had already gone to college. The other one was still in high school for one more year. That's why, by the way, they said they were going to stay in Washington, D.C. because they didn't want to take their daughter out of her very, very expensive private school until she graduated. That was in 2016. It's now 2025. They still live in Washington, D.C., one of their many homes. But regardless of that, do the math here with me, will you? Michelle Obama says that she hated her husband for 10 years back when the kids were little. Barack Obama, when asked how you repair that, says it helps when you get out of the White House, which was 8 years later. So now we're going on close to 2 decades of Michelle hating her husband. Okay, fine. Just wanted to throw that out there because Nate Burleson, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks and Detroit Lions, couldn't bring himself to ask the follow-up. He's just smiling. He's so happy to be talking to Barack. Why take this job seriously after all?
And to have a little more time with her.
Right.
what also helps though about children, and I don't know about your spouse, Michelle, when our girls were growing up, that was priority number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Of course.
And so I did not fully appreciate, I think, as engaged of a father as I was, the degree of stress and tension for her, knowing that not just me and Michelle were under scrutiny and in this strange environment, but that we were raising our daughters,
of course,
in a kind of situation that it just wasn't normal. Now that they're doing good, she is a little more forgiving of all my flaws. She says, what she's told me is, looking back, you did okay as a dad.
Yeah.
And if I pass that test, then she'll forgive me most of my other foibles.
I kind of feel sorry for him, except that he screwed up our country so much and created such a toxic environment for political discourse in this country that it's hard to feel sorry for him that much. But good Lord, Michelle Obama. I like I said, these podcasts that she's doing and this whole hand-wringing about how horrible your life is, and he did too. Oh, it was just a terrible environment. They hated being president and first lady. That's why everyone who says that Michelle Obama, she runs for president, she's going to be, it's got cakewalk. She's got it in the bag. Michelle Obama, oh, God forbid, Michelle. I hear Republicans say this all the time. Oh, I hope Michelle Obama doesn't run for president. I hope she does. I hope she does run for president, because every single time she does an interview like this, every time she shows who she is, she shows herself to be a toxic individual with serious anger issues and resentment, not just of her husband, but of this country and all of the things she's gotten from us. I want her to keep doing these podcasts. Please do. Let the world see who you are, completely unplugged and unvarnished. Let your hair down, just like your brother does, sort of. All right. That's a wrap for today's show. Tommy Radcliffe, $5 super chat there. You're so funny, Larry. Thanks, but, looks aren't everything. Good times, guitar solo for you tonight. Yeah, baby. Let's go. I don't play the guitar, but I have friends who play the guitar, and apparently that's a thing that you do when you're doing a guitar solo. Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Oh, and I'm told, because Rumble, for some reason, we can't get the super chats from Rumble over onto our platform here, but $5 from Arthur Brogdon. Thank you, Arthur. Love seeing our friends over at Rumble, the OG crowd. Still here, still watching closely, Larry, very closely. Did I do that right? Did I do the evil laugh right? Still here, still watching closely, Larry, very closely. There's my Arthur Brogdon super chat for $5. Thank you, Arthur. Oh my gosh, that Michelle Obama stuff is going to haunt me all night long. Kevin, you're a single man, aren't you, my friend?
In a legal sense.
In a holy sense as well, Kevin.
I'm unmarried.
Thank you. You are unmarried. And did you learn something from watching the separate interactions of the former first lady and former president?
I learned that Black women are bad at airing their pain.
Yes. And if they did, who would listen?
Not me.
Kevin, choose wisely, my friend. Choose wisely. That's all we got today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next time, whenever that is. I appreciate you watching. My name's Larry. Hey, like this video, please. Give us some thumbs up and let everybody know how great this show was today. Make sure you share it and subscribe it. And I don't know why I'm doing that, but share and subscribe and make sure you don't miss an episode of this program that we like to call, well, I'm Larry O'Connor, but you can call me Larry.